And we are recording. Warwick Stevenson, how you doing?
Good, mate.
Good to catch up. We had a little pre-chat. Hopefully we can make the recording work this time. It took a couple tests. This is the first time I've done one overseas. You know, it's normally just guys here. So you're kind of the test, but so far so good. So anyway, where are you? You're in, obviously you're in Australia. Which city do you live in these days?
I live in a state called New South Wales. I live in a town called Thelmere, which is about 90-ish Ks southwest of Sydney. So a little bit out of Sydney.
Is that where you always used to live before you came out here?
No. I grew up in a town called Minto, which is about 45 minutes drive towards Sydney.
Okay, good stuff. Well, I thought with this particular, I don't know, whatever you call them, podcast, interview, YouTube, you have so much history. I thought we'd do this one. Maybe we'll just talk about your US journey. And like I say, we can always hop back on at another date and talk about your early days, because I like the Australian history as well. But yeah, let's talk about, I listened to you on Kalen and Bruce Morris's podcast on BMX Beers and Bullshit. And you talked a little bit about when you first got to the US, you flew into Phoenix, right, for the Winter Nationals. Maybe let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very, very rocky start. Like, I flew on Japan Airlines, which was the cheapest airline that I could find at the time, because obviously I didn't have much money. And the plane, like literally half the plane went to the wrong terminal. So they delayed it, and I was delayed 5 hours or something like that. And I only had business numbers for the ABA. So when I got in at like 7 or 8 o'clock at night, something like that, that obviously closed. And so I didn't have anyone to contact. So I literally had to wait all night. And just so happened there was a baseball game in town. And, when I rang my mum back home, she was, trying to find me a hotel, and nothing was available. So, well, nothing in my price range anyway. So I slept on the floor, the concrete floor of the airport for, until the next day, which was pretty scary at 18 years old when, you're just starting off your US journey, and that's what happened. But it was certainly good to see a somebody that actually came the next day once I finally got a hold of them. So yeah, that was literally the first 24 hours in the States. So very, very scary.
Yeah. So obviously you made your way over to Black Mountain, and then tell us a little bit about your experience, seeing that obviously Phoenix is still a huge race, and it was back then as well. Yeah, tell us about who you kind of guys you met to start with, and then maybe going into the race itself.
I got sort of linked up with the ABA through Grant, and Gork said that I could stay with him, and I think it was Billy Anderson. Is it Billy Anderson?
Billy Anderson, Billy D or BA?
No. The
guy that worked for the magazine, Billy Davis, maybe.
Billy, yeah, that's him.
Billy D, they called him, yeah.
Billy D. He lived with Gork, and I slept on Gork's lounge, and basically drove around with them for the first couple of weeks. And I got there on the Monday, so like it was a Tuesday, and and Black Mountain was that weekend, so I had 3-4 days to get over jet lag and go see the track and help set up, and which was not the easiest of work. But man, I was green. I was young. I was hungry. I was, just in awe of being, I'd never been overseas. I'd never even been on a plane. So wow. It was pretty cool for me.
Yeah. And where you kind of came onto the radar, which is basically straight away, is you was racing a pro, but you also signed up for Pro Open. And I can remember, because I was standing behind a couple of motos behind. You had a really hard moto, I think, like Christophe, Purse, and a couple of the guys, and you pretty much you was on S&M as well, right? Was it S&M you was on?
Well, I rode an S&M because I purchased it literally probably 3 weeks before I'd come over to the States. The bike that I had that I raced the world titles in Melbourne in '98, that bike was handmade, like literally handmade not by me, but I was holding the tubes while some guy that knew how to weld. He wasn't a welder. He just knew how to weld. And you know, hand on heart, that's. I mean, the first bike we made was a cruiser, and the bottom bracket height was like 13.5 inches. It was horrible. And I tell you what, a bike that's with the bottom bracket that high is very hard to get out the gate. But in a drag race, pedaling, the best.
Well, it worked because you won Cruise at the Worlds that year, didn't you, in Melbourne?
Yeah, well, that was a new cruiser. So the first cruiser that we ever built, I raced the Aussie titles in Knox here in Australia, and that was horrible. But I raced a free agent, like an actual free agent. Mm-hmm. But then we made a 20-inch and another cruiser, and we got it right. But yeah, that I rode for a bike shop team. You know, at the '98 Worlds, and when I wanted to come over to America, he wouldn't allow me to keep the bike because I mean, selfishly, but you know, I'd won the Worlds on it, so you know, he sort of wanted to keep it for himself, but he didn't win the Worlds on it. I won the Worlds on it, so
yeah.
So I had to buy an S&M to come over. Well, I just wanted to buy a bike, and I needed something cheap, and I'd ridden an S&M, and it was that's what I had.
Yeah.
But in regards to like racing all the classes, because I was working for the ABA, they didn't charge me to race. So I just said, sign me up for everything. You know, I didn't have a cruiser, but if I did, I want to race cruiser as well.
Yeah.
So,
so you'd race Friday night. Did you win that?
I won Friday night. Yeah.
Okay. And then in that first moto, like what I was saying, you literally got on the gate and beat Purse, Leveque. It was a stacked moto anyway. And just everyone's like, who the hell is this? You know? And that's kind of where.
Well, it was the second moto because, you know, as I said in Kaylin's podcast or Kaylin's and Bruce's podcast, the gate was completely different. I mean, you probably remember it. It would have been like that in Melbourne. It was a free falling gate. So
yeah.
You know, growing up, all we knew is free falling gates. We didn't have rams until after I'd left. It was like 2 years after I left before tracks around here had a ram gate. So to come over to America, and that's all there is, was tough. So the first moto, being so nervous, and I don't even remember who I had, but I went lay, got cut off. I knew I had Danny Nelson next to me, and he cut me off. But the second moto, I had all this like energy and emotion and like anxiety built up. I literally just closed my eyes and got a perfect start and just took off. And you know, I was still putting them in even past the line. You know, 5-6 bikes in front, and I still pedaled over the line.
Right. Oh, that's cool. So you beating those guys, did that like set a light bulb off for you? Like, okay, I can do this out here.
It was like, yeah, I mean, the inner cockiness of myself. I always knew that I'd eventually, you know, be a contender. Like I knew deep down in my heart. I didn't go around telling everyone, I mean, I was never a cocky guy telling everyone I could beat them.
No.
You know, I like to think I'm a, somewhat of a quiet achiever, but I'm also confident, that I can do anything that I set my mind to. So, I knew that I could, I had a feeling that I could do it. I wasn't going to America just to be, an A pro and, maybe make a few mains here and there. I knew I could do something.
Yeah. And I guess it could have been the week right after Phoenix. Like I say, you were still a pro and you made the Pro Open main. And I can still remember behind the gate, we kind of worked out who you was then, with, seen glimpses in Phoenix. And going up for that Pro Open gate, we're all behind the main. We're all behind the gate for the main. And you come up and you shake everybody's hand like, good luck, good luck, good luck. Something that people really didn't do during that era, And can you tell us a little bit about that? And I think you was generally just being a nice guy, And you maybe chat us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, because I think that literally was the second weekend. So, I didn't have months and years of competing against those guys like you guys, and got to understand, you're all my idol. You, Jamie, John, Christophe, like guys that I looked up to, at that particular moment in time. I think John Purse was on the gate as well. I had his poster on my wall at home.
Yeah.
So, to start realizing that, hey, I can, compete with the, you guys. And I was just ecstatic and generally, like, there was no malice. There was no cockiness. There was no, playing mind games. It was literally just, happy to be there and wanted to show everyone how happy I was to be there, because that was something we did, here in Australia, because we were all so close. We all lived basically in the same state. So there was a lot of mateship off the track. I mean, they were still racing, but, we were all relatively close off the track as well. So, when I think back, I'm like, man, did I really do that?
Like I say, you're so young, though.
At
You're
the
so
time,
young. Yeah, young and innocent,
Yeah.
So you breezed through A Pro pretty quick. I remember seeing you winning a lot of races, and maybe talk to us a little bit about, your first AA race.
Where was my first AA race? I think it was like, I think it was Texas, but I didn't make the main either. I made Pro Open, but I didn't make the main in AA. And I was on standard by then.
So you got
just gotten on standard.
Okay, yeah. Tell us about that then. How did that come about?
So my very, very first race in Phoenix, I met what's his name?
Rick
Fox?
From Standard. Oh, Dwayne Taylor.
No. Dwayne, yeah. And then I seen him again, and then he started talking to me with he kept saying, I want you to ride my product. I want you to ride my product. And then down in Florida, it was at the Orlando race.
Easy Classic.
So him and Rick came up to me and they said, what would you think about riding for us? And it was just like, do you want to ride my product? It wasn't like, I think he sent me all the gear, and then a couple of months later, a contract came. But it wasn't. I mean, it was okay. It was great then, like, oh, you're going to pay for a few things and give me a bike, and I can actually keep the bike. Because in Australia, sponsorship is, I'll give you a bike and gear, but when you finish, you got to give it back.
Yeah,
like,
that's English deal as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I started riding for like Rick right after the Easter Classic down in Florida.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, tell us a little bit about then those first few races on standard, because you went pretty soon. You got on Diamondback, right? Didn't they offer you a pretty good deal?
So that was like I went over late March. Um, I think 3 races into riding for AA, I broke my wrist. So I was off for about probably 4 weeks. And then I really didn't like set the world on fire once I turned AA. But it wasn't until Rick dumped me, and that was probably September, October. I got another free agent. It was just a frame that had a dent in it that Dave Bittner had, because I was living with Dave at the time, and he couldn't sell it. So I'm like, well, can I buy it off you? And I actually still owe him the money for that bike, but anyway. But yeah, I put all the parts on the free agent, and I got I think there was a race in Illinois somewhere, and Dave and I literally drove to that race all night. It was like 100. And Dave will tell you, man, it was like crazy. We drove all night. We stopped at a truck stop. It was 120 degrees, like ridiculously hot, and the humidity out in the Midwest was crazy. We left the truck running all night, slept in the truck in a parking spot at a truck stop.
Yeah.
Like when I say truck, it's is just 4x4 truck, not a like semi-trailer truck. And we woke up. He put it in reverse. We backed out of the parking spot. We kept driving. Sorry, I got a call.
All good.
So yeah, it was. And then I went to that race, and because I just got dumped from standard, I got second. I won one of the pro, like because it was 3 mains. I won one of them and got second at like I got second overall.
Yeah.
But because I was and then I did good. I did pretty good at the fall nationals. I made the main one day, and what did I do at the grands? I don't think I had a very good grands, but right before the grands at the bike show, I'd been talking to Scott Matchell.
Okay.
And we literally wrote down a contract on a napkin sitting on the floor outside the bike show. And that was the deal. And man, that guy, there is no other more genuine person than Scott Matchell. He kept his word for everything. And he could have screwed me, because I had visa troubles. I didn't know anything about a visa. I didn't get paid. I was getting paid from the ABA, but once I'd gotten onto a real factory ride where you call Gary Ellis's family, and you say, I want to go to this race. I want to leave Friday. I want to come back Sunday night, and I want a mid-sized car. And that was it. They took care of everything. And that was the deal. That was the deal with Diamondback, and it was just easy and awesome, and that's where I progressed and got better and better and better as time went on.
Yeah. What I can remember, I think you were still on Diamondback. It was probably that following season, so it would have been 2000, right? I think that's where you started to win some races, right? Pretty much.
The first race I won was literally the first race I won ever as a double A pro. I remember it like it was yesterday. We're in Tacoma, Washington, like just outside of Seattle, where Raleigh is situated. I always had to deal with Robert McPherson. Man, that guy, because he was the #1 pro on Diamondback, and I was the new guy, right?
Yeah.
He treated me like shit, man. Like if he didn't make the main and I made the main, or especially Pro Open, if I made Pro Open on Sunday, I had to make my own way to the airport. He was not waiting.
Right.
And if I made the main and he didn't make the main, he was gone. He was salty. Right. Man, he was so salty. We'd be eating breakfast. He'd finish. I'd be halfway through, and he'd say, "Get it to go. Let's go." So I'd be literally grabbing my pancakes, walking to the car. But this race in Tacoma, I'm pretty sure it was Tacoma in Washington. I think it was the first day. I'd won the first main. He won the second main. We were tied for points.
Right.
The last main, I was on the outside. He was on the inside. And he cut me off and rode me off the track. And we both crashed. And I got up first. And I beat him on points. And I won. And it was so blatant that the guys they were pissed. They were pissed because we were teammates. Yeah. He rode me off the track. I was clearly faster than him that day. So he didn't even race on Sunday. I think he went home. So there was trouble in paradise for Big Mac. And it was after that where I started, I made the main at the Grands when, and I think I got 5th or something. I did pretty well towards the end of the year. I think I did I made the main both days at the Falls. But it was just literally, knowing that I could do it. And I won a few Pro Opens as well, but I didn't count Pro Opens as pro wins. But then 2001 rolled around, and that's when I started. That's when the wins came.
Yeah. And I think real quick, 2001 Worlds, you were so established. Obviously, Kentucky, I was next to you on the gate. And for me, going up for the Worlds, I'm like, this is my last chance. But I'm next to you on the gate. I was in 1, you was in 2. And I knew how fast you was already, So that was a big mental thing for me, being next to you, because you had you and Stumphouse had such a good, drive 2, 3, 4, and for me that was that was tough, even being next to you on the gate. But by Grands, right, you was up for the title, right? That was a year you and Leveque were up for the title going into the Grands, right?
At 2001, yeah. So I think Christophe and I were 10 or 20 points away from each other. It was really tight. I think whoever beat the next person won, because double points at the Grands. Yeah. Danny was also up, but he had to win. I had to get 5th, so he was a little bit of a long shot. And the pressure, man, I'd only been there a couple of years. Even though
breaking up a little bit,
I feel like, still, but it wasn't until Christophe went out in the quarter, I think, or the semi, that I thought, whoa, hang on a sec. and I made the main. I was couldn't believe it. And it was like I got a shot of adrenaline, and all the pressure had gone away because, and I don't want to sound cocky by saying this, but I didn't look at Danny as well, it's between Danny and me. I looked at Christophe like it was between Christophe and me. So with Christophe going out, I was like, man, this is mine. So, you know, I bumped the gate and got 5th in the first main, but then I won the second 2 mains. And that was when that was Kyle's first race.
That
was
his
first race,
his first big win, yeah.
First win. And Kyle won the first main and got second, and Kyle won the overall, and I got and I won the title. And the special part for me is not. I mean, obviously, yeah, I won the title. That's bloody amazing, right? But to win it against Christophe, is another level. Christophe, I mean, what can you say about Christophe? That what hasn't he done? He's done everything.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and revolutionized the sport of BMX.
And I seem to remember that was the podium was Kyle, you, and Greg Romero, and that was kind of the outcoming of Sean Dwight, the trainer, because I think he was training all 3 of you guys, right?
Yeah, I mean, but Sean was also racing as well. That was Sean's first year in America.
Yeah.
He had actually no, it was his second year. He came over in 2000. But he wasn't coming over to try and get a career in being a trainer. He was coming over to try and race and compete. But he'd left his run a little bit late. He was 26 or 27 when he came over, so he was sort of like, you know, either in his prime or, you know, slightly maybe a little bit older.
Yeah.
I mean, because back then you didn't really start dominating until 24, 25, right? Where now it's they like, I don't know what's in the water, but everyone's peaking at 18, 19 nowadays.
Yeah.
You know,
I think Bubba set that standard, you know. So after you won the Grands, is that when you got picked up by Haro straight away?
2001, 2002. Yeah. So when there was not dramas, but there was like, you know, I was talking to Tony D for a while, and I met Tony at a California race, and he was asking, because I think that was around the time that Jamie had left and gone into cycling.
Yes.
So they were looking for, you know, another top guy.
Yeah.
And Tony D jokingly said, "Oh, could that be you?" And I said, "Oh, maybe if I win the title," because I'd had a few wins and there was only a couple of races before and he got my phone number and he called me, and there was also, you know, talks with Diamondback, and Scott was pretty forthcoming. Like, man, I just don't know if we're gonna have the budget to pay you what you're worth. So, you know, as Diamondback was, you know, slowly fading away, Haro came in. So I had already sorted out a deal even before the Grands with Tony D. I mean, that was it, right? Most of the guys had next year's deal locked up by the falls, really. And if you didn't, then you were sort of hanging around for the scraps of what's left.
Yeah. Now the industry was in a good place then, and I think you came in at a good time. And obviously, you know, the rumor was, I mean, you obviously had a great deal with Haro, and then you went into the next season, and that's where you and Thunder Dan went head to head, right?
Yeah. So I was defending my title that year, which was, you know, still relatively young, but and on a new team, and it was a lot of pressure. I remember the first couple of races went absolutely horrible. You know, trying to get used to a new bike. It was way stiffer than what I'd ridden with Diamondback. trying to adjust, and then I've found my groove, and I won a few races, and then Danny and I are up for the title, 2002. And I think it was pretty much the same deal. I think I had a bit of a lead. Danny, I think, had to beat me by 2 or 3 spots in order to win. But still, at the Grands, it's not Danny and I on the gate. There's still, 30, 40 other guys that, could make the main as well. But look, it was unfortunate. I had a horrible Grands up until the main. The first main, I got out and actually rode the race that I was making, all the excuses in the world. That was around the era that, remember those stupid little, 28 tooth front sprockets,
right?
were around, and the really small, I thought I'll save on weight and better pedaling power, but man, you just couldn't get out of the gate. And then it wasn't literally until the semi that I went back to regular 44-16. And that's when I started, doing good again.
Yeah.
So the first main, I won. Danny got caught. I think Danny was next to me on the gate, and I sort of pushed past him and got out, and I think he got like 5th. So I was pretty stoked after that. Then the second main, I whole shot it again. I was in front, and I mean, the video's out there. Everyone can see. I went wide. He made a move, but it certainly doesn't look good that the same guy that's on the same team did what he, he rode a race.
And this is that for the ones that don't know. So Warwick's winning, and then Afro Bob the Wild makes a move on the second turn. Obviously, that pushed you back. Robert went on to win that race. You got shuffled, to the back of the pack, and then there was a lot of, I guess, drama about it. Robert and Danny were teammates. Robert has said numerous times on different podcasts it wasn't team racing. There was, you had different thoughts. So carry on. Your thoughts on all that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I highly doubt that there was a meeting before the race saying, "Oh, look, if you get a shot, take him out." Like, I'm not saying that that's what happened, but it just, you got to put yourself in my shoes. That race cost me the title, and yourself, if you win the ABA title, you get cars, massive bonuses, a number 1 plate. You're the champ for a year. You get second, you get whatever. What's second? Nothing. You get nothing for the title. If you get second in the race, you get the race winnings for the race, which is what, $1,000. But if you win, you get,
it's a huge jump.
15 grand for a car, plus whatever bonuses you have. Which on Diamondback were for the title was matched. So 15 grand times 2, plus all your co-sponsors, $500 here, $1,000 there, times 10 for all you, because I had a lot of co-sponsors as well. So that all adds up. So, there's also that to take in mind as well, right? But it is what it is. I was proper salty. But look, Robert did that. That guy cost me, I don't know, 150, 200 grand over my career, I would say. Because he did the same thing at the MBL Grands.
Okay, and so I had notes for that as well. And I did tell Robert, because me and Robert are talking about doing one of these as well. So it'll be interesting to get his take on it as well. But I remember there was, MBL Grands. I think, again, you and Robert in the semi, right? There was some something went on between you two.
2004, I'd won the Worlds. I was so far in points for the MBL that all I had to do was make the main. I was in the semi. Robert cut me off out of the gate. Didn't make the main.
Yeah, I remember that. That's when until Kyle went on to win the main. Then Kyle had to win the main to get
Tyler
the
had to
title,
win the main
and he
to
did
beat me.
from lane
And
8.
he did.
From lane 8, yeah,
From
I
lane
remember
8.
that. So let's just go back to that Grands then. So Danny goes on to win the title. Was there any words or anything between you, Robert, Danny, anything, or you just kind of left it at that?
Oh, I mean, there was a big commotion. I, obviously raced across the line to try and get it on with Afro Bob, and there's all these people around and stopping, and I was obviously extremely upset.
Yeah.
And then the last main, because it was, I was still with emotion and racing under that much pressure. I folded. I had a horrible last main. Danny won the last main, won the title. And it is what it is. There was probably words. Do I remember? No. It's just, literally, I had a really good friend in Arizona, and when months after, weeks after the race, he just said, look, you're still in the past. You're going to live in the past. And the past is losing. So if you don't want to lose, then you need to think in the future. And in the future is whatever you make it. So, and those words, stuck by me. And so I just focused on my training, got everything that, I rode a lot better. If you go back and look at transit races, my riding, like my skill set was not great in 2002. I wasn't riding my bike as much, where I fixed that part of my training. Most of the transit stuff of me riding trails and at Justin Snodley's backyard and things like that was in 2003.
Okay.
So I really tried to not squat 5 plates as much. I tried to ride my bike as much as I could, and I I always thought, well, if I just train harder, then I'll go faster and I'll just beat everyone. But it's not, BMX is not just lifting really heavy weights and doing lots and lots of sprints. There's all these other things, the way that you take a jump can make you go faster than the 3-4 pedals that you do before or after as well,
And also Bubba was coming into the picture as well. So obviously you had to be on your game, track speed wise, dealing with Bubba, right?
Yeah, Bubba didn't really start doing really well till late 2003.
Okay.
I remember at the Grands, 2003, I had won the title whether I go to the race or not.
Yeah,
I could have.
I wanted to tap on that because going into that season, it was you and Thunder Dan again that seemed like you was getting the wins in on that. And then by mid-season, I think you and Danny was 1 and 2 again, and that's where Danny exited and quit. Went on to pursue a business opportunity. So yeah, then it was kind of a walk in the park then for you, right, for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely like earlier 2003, Danny and I. But then mid 2003, and I'm sure Danny had all these other things going on, but I had won. Like Danny was winning races, I was winning races, but I was winning the big races. The Phoenix. I think I doubled at Phoenix. Which the rider count was big. There was a race in California. I won that. I won the 4 nationals. But it was winning the 4 nationals, and Danny didn't even go to the 4 nationals. He was already done. He had exited.
Yeah.
And John Purse was also there for the title, and John had to win both days for him to have a shot at the Grands, and I won both days.
Mm-hmm.
So
locked it up right there, right?
Locked it up, yeah, at the falls. But getting to the grands, you know, I didn't, because I'd won the title. I sort of relaxed. I didn't have my, you know, I wasn't training like super hard for the grands. I was still training. I was still riding my bike a little bit, but you know, just enjoying. Like, man, this is, you know, I've won again, and so I didn't have the best, and I didn't take it very seriously. I think I went late the first moto. I got like 6th. Then I got, I think, 4th or 5th on the second moto. Again, I think I thought like 3rd or 4th. The last moto, I got in like with 12 with a 3. I think the next person was like 12 with a 5. So I barely made the quarters. And I was on the outside, and Bubba was doing well, but the grands, he was, you know, winning some motos, and he was going fast and doing what Bubba did. And I remember, I never forget, Bubba was talking shit to me in the quarter. I was in lane 8, and I think we didn't get into an argument, but like there was a bit of shit talking back and forth. And I won the quarter, and from the quarter to Pro Open, never lost a race. Won the quarter, won the semi, won the I won Pro Spectacular. I won all 3 mains and won Pro Open.
Yeah. Now you was on it then, and like say going into the next season.
Yeah.
Like say when you said Phoenix, then that's where I really remember, because obviously it was on transit. Good job, Colin Stiles, on all those transits, by the way. You was absolutely, you go back and watch those transit in Phoenix. You're just racing on your own. You just completely smashing all of us. You know, it was good. Yeah. I just remember you just on it. Then obviously going into 04, winning the Worlds. You know, maybe touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that was so I always I don't know, I always did good in Phoenix. I just, you know, I never missed gate practice on a Tuesday night. I knew the track back to front. I trained there all the time. Debbie let me to go there and jump the fence and ride the track whenever I wanted. I mean, I remember doing, you know, training days when it was 110 degrees out, like just brutalizing myself to try and, you know, if I train harder or make the conditions harder in training, then those days where it's really hot, you know, wearing all the gear won't be so bad, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, 04, I just, it was, I was just doing, everything was falling into line. Like my bike, my track speed was good. Well, it was okay. It wasn't the best, but it was okay. 04, you know, Sean turned more coach as opposed to, you know, on the side, as you know, mostly racer. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the 02 Grands, he didn't race because he couldn't jump the pro section going into the last corner.
Mm-hmm.
So 03, he established, that's when he, I think is when he moved, or he'd already moved, but he was, you know, starting to turn more coach. And 04, he was pretty much coach. So I remember the off season with Sean was the best training I've ever had. Like, we were lifting ridiculous amount of weights. We were doing, you know, 45, 14, 100-meter sprints, you know, stopping, checking. He had this little blood work machine that we'd like tap our finger and check our blood work to see the oxygen levels, and we couldn't, you know, do another effort until those come down. Midway through 2003, I slept with a heart rate monitor. So if I woke up and my heart rate was above whatever, I think it was 50 something beats a minute or 60 beats a minute, then I just didn't train that day because I was tired. So I took a day off. So it got really technical, and that's when I really started listening to Sean and not fighting, because we were just mates, and like he was my idol. Then we became competitors and friends, and then slowly he turned into a coach with me, I was probably one of the ones that gave him the most resistance, because I trying to understand, well, hang on a second, like I looked up to you, you were a pro to me. Then we became friends because we competed. Then I started beating you, and now that I like you're not even really a competitor to me anymore. Now, like, you're turning into a coach, and like that was a a transition period. So midway through 2003 is when I really started, taking it seriously, I should say.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that 04 Worlds then in Holland.
Well, as I said on the podcast with Kaylin and
Bruce.
that with Bruce, I didn't take it serious. Like, I'd only raced the Worlds twice. Once in France, then in America, because I had the visa issues, I couldn't leave. And in 2004 I had so much good stuff going on. I was reigning champ. I had I already had like 10 wins. So I already had a perfect, almost perfect score. I was on my game. I was winning races. There was myself and Bubba. And I literally, and I was moving house during that time. I'd moved into a different house, moved closer to the track. I was, and I literally woke up that morning, and I also had a Japanese guy with me as well, staying with me, because like Haro had sold so many bikes over in Japan. They sent some guy that barely spoke any English, but he was a cool guy, and we rode together. But I never forget. I woke up that morning, and I didn't even want to go. I literally was almost gonna just be like, nah. Anyway, I got on the plane, and I think that sort of the week before, not training and doing other things, everything just felt easy at the Worlds. Like, not only that, the week before, Sean had said that 180s with 44/16s the new wave, so I listened. So I'd only been on 180s for a couple of weeks, and I got there and I was an underdog because I there was a lot of faces that I didn't know that had heard of me, but they didn't really know. Obviously, the same guys are winning all the time or competing all the time, and those are the guys in America. But just being different, I don't know, everything just clicked. And part of it was, I never forget, and I said this in the other podcast, that I was in the gates area with some lady that was calling the names, and she had absolutely no clue who I was. Like, and some South American guy and Luke Medill was standing there. They laughed their ass off because they're like, well, he's the ABA champ. Like, how do you not know? Right. And I was last pick, so I went like, if there was 50 guys, go 150, 249. You know what I mean? So I was in the my motos were stacked because
you didn't have a UCI ranking.
I was so far down the ladder.
Yeah.
Internationally wise,
Mm-hmm.
So I that was for the motos, for the Wednesday race, that international race, whatever.
Yeah, they had a midweek race. I totally remember. Yeah.
Yeah, and I won that, and then everything just felt I just was in a zone. Like I remember just being in a in a zone, and I just went on to won everything.
Did you? What would you put it on level with the ABA title, or which holds more weight for you? Would that be the UCI Worlds or the ABA title?
Sorry, say that again. You just cut out a little bit.
What would you hold more prestigious, the ABA title or the UCI Worlds?
Look, if you had have asked me before the Worlds which one, I would have said the ABA title, because, you know, in theory, it's a lot harder to win because you've got to, race all year, have all the, the points, have a perfect score, and still dominate the grands. But the world title, because there's just so many people, and, and not only that, I remember, I never forget weeks after I'd won, just sitting back and thinking to myself, like, I am the best in the world. Like, just, not telling anyone, just having those, thoughts, sitting on my lounge, quiet time, no TV, no nothing, just, sitting there with my own thoughts and thinking to myself, I'm the best in the world at what I do. And that was like, like, I didn't anticipate feeling that way, but I felt that way afterwards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about during all this that was going on, the race in the Worlds, banging out all the wins and stuff. You did MTV Cribs. So how did all that come about?
There was, I don't even remember who asked me. I think it might have been through, I think Tony D asked me. There was talk that MTV had contacted the USA BMX sort of midway through 2004 about doing a show called Made. Now, they'd already done a BMX show, but it was a BMX freestyle show, and like the girl did a backflip. It was the number one show, and I think it still is the number one show of all time. So they wanted to do something similar, but they'd already done freestyle, so they wanted to do racing. Now, they were in talks with Richie Anderson and also Mike Redmond. And because I was the reigning world champ, I was sort of and Australian and bleach blonde hair. It was sort of a no brainer. But where I almost didn't get that gig is because I had a crazy schedule in 2004, because we went over to China for that inaugural China race, because BMX just got inducted to the Olympics. So they were filming while I went to China. So they, there was parts where, I was talking to Lauren on the phone and I was in China. It was like 2:00 in the morning, but they had to have me speak at a certain time. So, it was definitely tough trying to, juggle BMX, MTV training, living out of home. I wasn't at home hardly at all during 2004. But, so I went on to film for MTV Made, and it did really, really well. I remember, and man, MTV back then was that's what everyone watched, right?
Oh,
so,
yeah, definitely.
It was huge. So I was getting recognized like crazy, especially flying everywhere. It certainly did well for my my social life. But I remember when MTV Made came out, and it was a couple of weeks after it had aired. I was driving home on the 101 freeway in Phoenix, and I was talking to my agent on the phone, and he said that they love you, the show's number one for that season. you know, everyone's talking about the Australian guy, blah blah blah, and I'm like, tell him I want to do cribs.
Right.
And he's like, seriously? And I'm like, yeah, man, tell him I want to do cribs.
Yeah.
I swear to God, 20 minutes, he calls me back and he said, they're going to be at your house in like 2 or 3 weeks.
Wow.
He's like, if you're serious, they want to do it more than what you want to do it.
Right.
And sure enough, man, they showed up and like they got there at like 6 o'clock in the morning and we filmed to like 7 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a long day, but it was just like, man, this is like cameras like you'd never seen before, like strapped to the body and, you know, on this swivel, like following you around. It was, man, like pretty cool to see.
Yeah. And so obviously you said you already got recognized from the Made show. By the time Cribs came out, then people must have really been picking up on you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where's Instagram when you want it, eh?
Oh, yeah. I know. Far out.
Good stuff. So let's I guess let's talk about going into the Grand. So you and Bubba, right, up for the title?
Sorry, say that again. It cut out a little bit.
So going into the Grands, it was up to you and Bubba, right? You and Bubba were going for the title.
Yeah, like I, you know, that was right in the midst of, you know, after MTV Made had came out. Oh no, sorry, filming for MTV hadn't actually came out yet, but it was like not long after the MBL Grands was. I was literally living or staying in a hotel in Pennsylvania, flying from Pennsylvania to the MBL Grand. So, you know, my training was horrible going into that, and just, you know, I can say this now. All that fame and bullshit all went to my head, and I probably got over myself, you know, more than what I probably should have. And, you know, in hindsight, I probably wish I had somebody that would, you know, literally smack me around and make me focus, because I wasn't, you know, I was too, you know, probably well, not probably, I know I was full of myself back then.
You was
So I
young
didn't,
though, you know. So I mean, like say there was
yeah, and
no
when you
roadmap.
come from, nothing, like my parents, you know, weren't rich by any means. They were Aussie battlers, and you come into all of that, you know, because I was making very, very good money for 23, 24, 25, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then getting recognized so much. And I wasn't like a, you know, the most popular guy in school. I didn't play football or soccer or anything. So, you know, the girls weren't chasing after me back then. So, you know, I said and did things that, you know, I probably, that I, you know, like I wasn't training properly. I wasn't eating properly. I wasn't, you know, I wasn't focused like I should.
Mm-hmm.
But nevertheless, I still went into the Grands feeling good, feeling strong. I was winning races. I made the main quite easily. But the track, because I wasn't taking my sport, my profession as seriously as what I should, and you know, you remember that 2004, like that track surface was horrible. You know, what was their excuse? The dirt had sat outside for 2 weeks and it just rained constantly or some bullshit.
It
Like
was
it was
yeah.
soft, it was
I'm not
boggy.
sure. I'm not sure what the excuse was, but it was definitely soft and boggy. But then obviously they made it really tough and technical. I mean, I literally did not hit that pro section. I literally went around it. You know, it's like I was, and even when I watch the video now, it still looks pretty tough. You know, so and like
Oh,
what
it
you
was
said
horrible.
earlier, how you kind of adapted to, you know, feeling good on your bike. You was still doing pretty good through all that stuff.
Yeah, but I wasn't riding my bike as much as what I should have.
Mm.
You know, I jumped the pro section, but it It was not pretty. It didn't look good. It didn't look like Kyle. I mean, that pro section, even like Kyle, it was in Kyle's head.
Yeah.
So there was, it was tough. It was eating up some guys that could ride their bikes, that were known for riding their bikes. And the one person that it didn't bother, that absolutely loved it, was Bubba. And whether that was just his cockiness and his self-belief that, man, like, I know that this track is in everyone's head, so I'm just not going to let it be in my head. He just ate it up.
So it came down to the last main, right? You were still in with a shot at the title, right? Is that what happened? And then you guys battled through the. I should have watched this main before we talked. You guys were battling through the pro. You went down in the last turn, right?
Yeah, I won the first main, and so.
Then second main, maybe he won the second one.
First main.
Yeah.
Bubba, I was winning the first main, and I rolled one of the pro sections, I think, and Bubba jumped and landed on my back and crashed.
Okay.
And then I won. He got last.
Okay, that was that.
7th or whatever, like last. The second main, and then after that main, he kicked me in the head, and then we got into it after that main. So
in the pits.
Tensions were like skyrocket, right? The second main, he won. I got second. So all I had to do was get like 5th.
Yeah.
In the last main, I was winning, and there was the pro section. Then you went around the step up. Then you had those 4 big rollers.
Yes.
You know, you had to have speed in order to jump them.
Yeah.
I jumped the first set, and I tagged him, and I tagged him hard. And I went to manual the second set, and I was just going too fast.
Yeah, and it bucked
and
you.
It just got me. I went over the bars.
Yeah,
and I got last.
Bubba got the title.
That was the title.
Yeah.
Bubba got the title. It was literally, it was meant to be for Bubba. Simple as that.
Yeah. He was definitely good in that pro section, but like I said, it was really. There's no way I was going to do it. I was already mid-30s, and yeah, it was beyond me. But I still think you did pretty good for how tough that track was. So tell us a little bit about that then. After the Grand, you ended up national number 2. Did things start going south then with Haro? What actually was the what went down after that, going into the during that winter?
So no, so things were like, I still rode for Haro after the Grand. I had a really good deal with Haro. I had a very, very large, well, I mean, I thought was quite large, decent monthly salary with them, plus bonuses and everything else. But it was the Easter Classic, or the week before the Easter Classic, that I'd hurt my knee. I'd blown my, like, really, really blew it out. And I just battled with injuries that whole year. It was that year that I ruptured my spleen. No, not ruptured my spleen. I collapsed my lung in Florida as well. That year, I broke a few fingers, things like that. But it was my knee that I really struggled to come back from. And then I didn't even race. I don't even think I raced the Grands. I got it fixed at the end of that year. And that's when Haro came to me and said, "Oh, like, you can still ride for us, but we can't pay you." So I went from, like, having one of the best salaries that they'd ever paid to, "Oh, we'll pay for you, for you to get to the races, but we just, we might be able to give you $500 a month or $1,000 a month or something stupid. So it's pretty much, telling me to go away, but not saying go away.
Yeah, no, I understand. So what happened then? So
I think that was the year that Derek and Jason rode for them.
Okay.
So I think in their eyes, they're like, well, for what we're paying this one guy, we can get two guys and probably still save money. You know?
I understand. Yeah. So did you carry on racing as a privateer, or did you go home? I think you went home, right?
Sorry?
So did you carry on racing that season, or you went home, right?
2006, I went back to Australia.
Yeah.
2006,
yeah.
Yeah, so after I got my knee fixed, I raced Vegas, which was at the start of the year, and I flew out like the next day. I rented my house out in Scottsdale. I had another property in Phoenix that was already rented out, and I basically got rid of all my stuff. I had a Corvette and a custom chopper. I rode the bike out to California and got a container and put the bike and the car in a container with all my trophies and everything that was in the car and checks and things that it was going to be too hard to take on a plane. I stuffed, containers aren't cheap, and put all that stuff in a container and sent it all back to Australia.
Yeah. I'm glad you did that, because I was kind of like, I felt it was a bit sad at the end for you, but at least you got to take some of your stuff back with you. I literally thought you just jumped on a plane and left everything home, left everything AZ and just kind of walked away from it all.
No. You can't take too much stuff. Like, I didn't take TVs or anything like that. It was all like my valuable stuff. Like, the car was literally chock-a-block full of all of the big, ABA checks that I've got hanging up in my garage, my Nora Cup and my, ABA cups and plaques from the worlds and medals and everything got stuffed in the car.
Oh, good.
So, I was lucky in the sense where I was able to do that. I mean, it cost me a lot, but
you still got all that. You still got all that stuff then with you?
No, I sold the car. So I made a killing on the car. I bought the car. It was a Z06 Corvette. So it was an 03 at the time, and I come back in 06. So it was relatively new and only had 22,000 miles. I think I paid just over 40 US, 41, something like that, 42, I think. And I sold it in Australia, left-hand drive, for 88.
Wow, good deal.
88 grand.
Good deal, yeah.
And the bike, I paid 20 grand or 20,500. I'll never forget it. 20,500 from Phoenix Harley, which was on Bell Road. It wasn't a Harley. It was what was it? It was a custom bike. That was the bike that was in Cribs that I brought back. I went to sell it and this is where I was really, really lucky. Because my dad has the exact same name as me. I'm a Warwick Brian Stevenson Jr. They never when my dad would come over and visit me, they never stamped his passport to go back. Now, if you want to send something back to Australia, you can, as long as you own it for a year and you've been in America for a year, and you can bring one personal import without paying duty. So I brought the car, my dad brought the bike.
Oh, deal, yeah.
So I paid no duty on either of them. I went to sell the bike, and they offered me 11 grand as a trade-in. I sold the bike for 40 grand.
Wow.
So
good.
I made, and the bike was a piece of shit. Horrible to ride.
Right.
Horrible to ride.
You said earlier, and I totally forgot, you won the Nora Cup as well. What? Yeah, that's pretty cool to win that, right?
Yeah, that was when they changed it from kids voting to the
industry,
like you guys vote, like us voting.
Yeah.
So it was, I think, 2004, because I was winning. You know, I just won the Worlds. I was leading points for MBL. MBL hadn't. I don't think the MBL had raced yet, or maybe it just did.
Mm-hmm.
It
was all around that time
because it was at the Nora Cup was at the bike show.
Okay, in Vegas.
Because
You won it in Vegas.
you know,
yeah.
So because I was, you know, on everyone's tongue that year,
Mm-hmm.
and the tip of their fingers with keyboards, because I remember that was the what was that?
There was a lot. There was a lot of websites, not Instagrams, Twitters. It got out of hand definitely during that period. Message boards,
keyboard warriors back then.
Yes.
You know, a lot of those guys may not have liked me, but they had to respect me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I won the Nora Cup as well.
Yeah, no, I think the whole internet, message boards, websites, it got out of hand. Definitely, I think it was just for the era it was, and I don't think anybody got off lightly. I mean, you think you might have got it? I mean, I think at some point everybody got a good a good hammering on there, you know. So it was all as bad as each other, I think, you know.
Yeah, look, I certainly got it a lot more than the average guy. You know, and as I said in previous podcasts and interviews, you know, I never spent a lot of time in the buddy camp, you know, with Thunder, you know, Miranda, Richardson, yourself, you know, Christophe, Thomas, you know. One thing with you, Dale, is you didn't have trouble. I mean, I remember it was, where were we, in California somewhere, where you and I almost came to blows.
I don't remember. Where was that?
I think it was in California. Remember,
national?
it was in Cruiser. I think it was like what was it, the World Cup or something?
Was it the ABA Worlds, maybe?
ABA Worlds, yeah.
In Reno, maybe?
No, it wasn't Reno, because Reno's indoors. It was an outdoor race, but it was like an arena.
No, they had an ABA Worlds at Reno outdoors. They had an outdoor Worlds at Reno, I think.
Oh, then it was, it was there.
And it was in Cruiser?
Yeah, I think I think I slipped my pedal going into the first turn, and you'd run into the back of me, and you thought I'd cut you off.
Right. Yeah.
And like you had said something, and I said, I'll fucking slip my pedal, and then and then like you turned around, and we like literally almost come to blows. But I was literally, there's no malice in it. Like I fucking literally unclipped.
Yeah. I think, but it might not have been Cruiser. I think I was up for a top 3 or something. It might have been the last main. And
right.
Yeah, I think I was in contention, not to win, but I think like top 3 at that race was still pretty good for me, you know. That, and I was old then, so that might have been it. But yeah, things definitely got out of hand, and you did probably get it more than you deserved. And I think like a lot of people, yeah, it was just bad. The internet was, you know. I mean, I got it as well, you know. So it's I don't think anybody really got away too lightly. Let's now you came back, right, and rode for Kuwahara with Matt Polkamp, right? So that was like you came back from Australia and gave it another little go, right? Or was the Kuwahara before you left?
So I went back to Australia, and the guy Julian Mills. I don't know if you remember Julian Mills.
Yeah, the rocker guy. Rocker guy. Yeah.
He was in with Kuwahara in Taiwan, and they wanted to, you know, they were obviously coming back, and they wanted to do, something with, you know, some top guys. They already had Matt, and I had raced the Australian titles in I think it was in Melbourne, and I had been speaking to Julian, and he said, you know, like, I want you to ride for Kuwahara, but the only thing is, like, you've got to go back to the States. Like, you can't, I can't like justify paying you and, you know, being in Australia. So part of me was like, you know, like, do I go back? And, you know, all these things happen, and am I still going to, you know, dominate? And so, but I also missed being in America. I missed racing all the time. You know, in Australia, you race 5 times a year, you know, max. That's if you're doing everything. So I missed, you know, actually racing. So I flew over for the Christmas Classic, and I think, like, I should have won the Christmas Classic, but there was like a berm jump going into the second turn. I clipped the bloody, just barely clipped it with my front wheel, and my front wheel turned, and I broke my thumb, and then I got a pneumonia from the Christmas Classic, going from Australia, which is, you know, 100 degrees, to Ohio, which is minus 100 degrees.
It was already that race was already the sickness classic, because you'd always get sick there, you know, with the Christmas and all that. You know, everybody would go out Sunday after the race. I was guaranteed to get sick.
Oh, hard. We had a good night Sunday night, let me tell you. But yeah, like, we I got really, really sick. And I remember going to Reno, and I couldn't race because I was sick. And then, man, it just, like, I came back, I raced, I did good. I was going fast. I was always in contention, but I'd do something dumb and crash or whatever. But that year, 2007, I've never had so many injuries in my life. I mean, I rode trails, I broke my ankle. I broke my thumb at the Christmas Classic. I broke my arm. Like, I don't know if you'll be able to see. I've got a scar that goes from there all the way to there. The bone come out right there.
Yeah.
So I broke both bones. I didn't realize my wrist was dislocated, and I came back racing with a dislocated wrist. I couldn't understand why my arm just always was sore. I broke it again. I didn't know it was broken, and the plate held it, but it started to bend. So there was like this crazy bend in it. I'm just like, that doesn't look right. And I didn't know that was broken until I'd ruptured my spleen. And when I'd come out of surgery from my spleen, because I almost died with I should have died. They said I was going to die. I was in an induced coma for 6 days.
Oh, wow.
I woke up. My mum was next to my bed. You know, she'd been told that I was going to die. She'd gotten on the first plane available, you know, and my parents weren't in the financial situation to just get on a plane that quick, but they did, obviously. And then, you know, the time that I was in a coma, I wake up, she's there, she's bawling her eyes out. I don't know what the hell's going on. So, you know, that happened. I came back from that. And then finding out, like, you should be dead, you should this and that. And, you know, my stomach, I've got this crazy scar. And I just didn't, when you just lose that edge where you go into a corner and you don't have any fear, you just go in, right? If you go in at 100%, you normally come out. But if you go in at 99% or 98%, you're a little bit timid, you usually crash and something happens because you're not confident. And that's what happened. I just, you know, I had another crash where I hurt my shoulder. Then I had like the scar wasn't like, there was this tiny little dot where pus was coming out, and kept going to the doctor and getting it checked out. And he's like, oh no, it's just a little infection, no big deal. Then he'd get this tape and shove the tape in there and then put a Band-Aid over the top of it. And then it turned into a staph infection. And how it came to fruition is I went to Vegas for a race towards the end of the year, and like my stomach was really sore. Like I thought I'd like tore a muscle in my abs or something. And I went to Vegas. I practiced. I'm like, man, my stomach like is really sore, right? So I'm just, muscling, like trying to get through the pain. And I woke up Saturday morning with every intention to race that day, and it had like somebody been massacred. Like the bed was covered in blood and pus. Like it had popped and it had leaked out overnight. I woke up and I thought, shit, I think I fucking pissed myself. And I looked and I'm like, somebody's been murdered in the bed. Because like I wasn't sleeping with anybody. I was there by myself.
Yeah.
So it had just, and I freaked out, called 911. They come and got me, and the staph infection had reached my bloodstream, and I was in Vegas. I mean, I knew people in Vegas, but like they weren't friends. They were just, I just knew them.
Mm-hmm.
So for 4 weeks, I stayed in. I had another surgery. They cut the scar. It had to heal from the inside, so they didn't stitch me up. So it healed from the inside out, which gave me this like crazy scar. Like it turned into a keloid scar. It looked like I'd been massacred. So 4 weeks in the hospital there, then came out of hospital, back training again, trying to get, because I was like on all these painkillers and that horrible feeling of all that shit coming out of your system. And then like still raced, still tried to, I was still on Kuwahara. They were still paying me.
Mm-hmm.
But with everything that happened, man, I was done. I was done. And I think I went to a Supercross race. I didn't go to, I never ever raced Supercross, but that was when the
big hill.
No, the new gate system had come in.
Yeah.
And I went to a race, and I'd never trained on that gate before, ever. And I didn't make it on my motos.
Yeah.
And that was a race in Florida, and like I pretty much told Kuwahara, look, I can't do this anymore, and I stopped racing.
Mm-hmm. So then you went back home again, obviously, right?
No, no.
You said...
But during that time, so if I rewind back to when I had a pneumonia, that weekend I didn't race, but I hooked up with Mike Moeller's sister.
I forgot about him.
So that weekend, it's funny. And I forget the guy's name. It was, you would know him, dark hair, freestyle guy. He was really good on his bike that raced. Tattoos. Oh, what's his name? I want to say he passed away.
Oh, from California, Aaron Johnson.
Yeah. Yes.
Aaron Johnson. Yeah.
So he was talking to Sarah, right? Sarah Moeller. And Sarah was with her mum. And Sarah's mum, with makeup on, she looks all right. She's got all the attributes of her, But Aaron's like, bro, come to the bar, this and that. And I'm like, bro, man, I just got over being sick. I need to get some rest. He's like, yeah, racing, blah, 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 this and that. So anyway, he was trying to get me to be his wingman to go, to hook up with Sarah's mum, because they were both shut. Like, so I went there with every intention of like, I'll have a crack,
Yeah.
And then Sarah was more interested in me than Aaron. So then we had to regroup, and we went to the bathroom, and I'm like, man, he's like, bro, I think Sarah wants you. Like, okay, so I'm gonna go for the mum. And I end up
Better split the deal.
So yeah, that's so I ended up having a long distance relationship with Sarah, and then and then we started like dating. So after that race, I pretty much said, look, what do you want to like? What do you want to do? So she's like, well, just come here, just move here. So I moved to Missouri, and I had money. I wasn't rich, but I still, I had plenty of money in the bank, so I wasn't worried about, working in the short term. So I went and stayed with her and lived with her and her mum, and then we ended up getting a place of our own, and then my visa had like literally another 8 months or something left on it, and I wasn't writing for anyone, and she's like, well, I'm like, well, and I'd spoken to my lawyer, and she said, well, you got to go home, or if you get married. So I said to Sarah, I said, what is this, and man, it was sort of one of my first real girlfriends that that I cared for. So we got married, and we didn't have a big deal. It was just we went down to the courthouse, and Sarah's mum was her witness, and Sarah's mum's partner was my witness, and we signed. We got a cheap ass hotel for the night, and then we went back and lived our lives that we were normally living.
Yeah.
And then I lived in America up until 2000, towards the end of 2010. That's where I finally come home.
Okay.
That relationship ended.
Because obviously, there's no social media, nothing, so nobody really knew what you was up to, where you was. Everyone just assumed you'd gone home, So, it's different times now where everybody knows everything about everybody,
Mm.
Before we wrap this up, let's chat a little bit about Kyle, because you guys were really good friends, and it was, for me to watch, looking in, you guys would literally go out. You guys would get first and second, switch wins between each other on a Saturday, and then you two guys would go out, literally party, drink, come in, when the daylight's already up, and then you do the same again. You guys will get first and second again. So yeah, tell us a little bit about your relationship with friendship with Kyle, and then obviously losing him. Your thoughts on everything.
Kyle and I, like, we became friends through Sean. Sean met Kyle at a race, and needed somewhere to stay, so we went and stayed with Kyle. And because we had that connection, with Sean, it was, just it was, we were always just going to be, like acquaintances. And then we became friends, and Kyle's got a very weird sense of humor. Everyone's got a nickname. Like my nickname growing up was Podge, because my dad had the same name. My dad, and I was a fat baby. He called me Podgy, and Podgy in Australia is someone that I think they use it in the UK as well. In America, it's Pudge. Someone's Pudgy.
Yeah.
So Kyle would always call me Pooch. So we just, we had this funny relationship, and then we just, when Sean wasn't around, Kyle loved to go out and loved to, we were just young, and we were doing good at what we did, and we knew that as long as we did everything right through the week, that we could still go out and we never went out on a Saturday night or a Friday night with the intentions of staying out all night. It was just we'd go out for a couple drinks, because I never drank through the week. We'd only drink on the weekends, which is funny, to hear that. But as Dave Bittner would say, 2 Miller Lights, it was just enough to relax you enough so you can get a good night's sleep. Well, Kyle and I would have Moscato, which is the cheap, cheap ass wine over there in the States. We don't have it here. Or we do have Moscato, but it's not the same. So we'd always, have a couple drinks at dinner, and then if there was a bar next to the restaurant, we let's just maybe one more drink, and then one thing led to another, and we're leaving the bar to go quickly shower and have something to eat, and because racing's about to start,
right? Yeah,
but or we'd be at the we never had these plans. Oh, we're gonna just have a bender at the races. It was never like that, and it wasn't every weekend. It was here and there, but do I don't regret it. I mean, it certainly wasn't the best thing for our careers and our racing, but it's certainly a funny story to tell. Obviously now we're a decade and a half after it all happened. So
yeah.
What was funny is to have the conversation with and it comes across as bragging, but to be able to sit there and talk to somebody that you race against that did everything right and went to bed early and doesn't drink and doesn't drink at all or whatever, and doesn't go out and whatever, and you still beat them. It's like
oh, you beat everybody. You two, literally. I mean, literally, we're the last bit of the 90s guys kind of holding on for a couple of years, why, and watching you guys do this. You guys were young enough, and you could still do it all, and what I was going to say about Kyle, you guys raced each other really. Kyle did with everybody, but you guys really raced and battled, but there was never any drama, was there? You guys raced clean together.
Yeah, I mean, I respected Kyle. He respected me. We never let racing get in the way. We trained together. I knew everything about him. He knew everything about me. It was just one of those pure friendships that was that and he's not a confrontational guy. He even thinking back, man, he never even talked shit about anybody. He was just what you see is what you get. Simple, didn't really ask for much. Didn't need to live in have fancy things. He wasn't a brand name person. I mean, he loved his toys. Like he would have, had that
truck, lowered truck, wasn't it? Yeah.
That he's poured freaking so much money and then done his ass on. But even when he was making all that money and winning all those races, he drove a regular single cab Tundra truck. I think the most extravagant thing when he was doing really, really well was he was one of the first people to get an iPhone. And like, he's just, and I think because of all those things, he wasn't like and I'm not picking on him, but like Jason Richardson, you always see him driving a Porsche or having, a big house and having all this money. And, you couldn't really envy Kyle for having luxury things. He didn't have luxury things, even though he was making stupid money. He just humble, genuine guy. nobody really says anything bad about Kyle.
No,
Anyway,
they really don't.
You couldn't.
No, nobody really did. I only think I saw him angry once. He was angry at your friend Afro Bob one year at the Christmas Classic. I remember one of the mains. I think Bob cut him off or something. That's the only time I saw Kyle angry. But no, you're totally right. Good guy, and it's just a shame he's not here any longer with us. But I always knew you guys were tight. All right, Warwick, let's kind of wrap it up. What you up to these days? I know you're back down under. How's life, family, work? I know you're a busy man. Give us an update.
Yeah, real quick. So I got 3 kids. 2 of them are in school. My youngest is only 3. We own the largest privately owned carpet cleaning business in Australia. So that definitely keeps us busy. We've got 44 employees, 33 technicians, 11 girls in the office. You know, we service in excess of sometimes 150 jobs a day, which is obviously a headache. A lot of happy customers, but sometimes a lot of not so happy customers as well. So that can certainly, take away your buzz. But yeah, man, just I'm out on the road most days. Either stocking our warehouse, because we've got an office with a little bit of a warehouse, or actually doing jobs myself. We do pest control as well, which we're slowly growing that. We only have pest control in New South Wales, but we've got the guy that's just got licensed in Brisbane. Got another guy that's going to get licensed in Melbourne. So we're slowly trying to expand and grow that business as well, which is exciting because, especially when you get into termite work, there's like ridiculous money in that, like ridiculous money. But we turn over $5 million a year, which is, a lot of money, but
yeah,
we're not the biggest, it's big for carpet cleaning anyway. For a single owner operated business, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, good for you, man. Warwick, it's been great chatting. I appreciate it. Any final words or thoughts, messages to anybody in the BMX world?
Man, I guess I really appreciate everything that's that I've ever received. I love my time in the sport. The guys that I competed against, shout out to all of them for, we spent a lot of time with each other racing every single weekend, back to back weekends, rodeo arenas and everything else. I may not have hung out with like guys like yourself or Danny or anything. I hung out with Danny a few times. I remember there was some funny stories with Danny. But yeah, I truly cherish everything that I've been through, good and bad. It's made me who I am today. And to you, Dale, we had some ups and downs, and but I probably look at what you're doing, your page, the most out of everyone in BMX, because everything you're doing is so positive with growing the sport and positivity with the sport, and you certainly portray a great lifestyle over there with your beautiful family, and more blessings to yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate it, mate. Like I say, I think it's always hard to be best friends with everybody who you race with, but I think I always respected you as a rider. You was unbelievable. You had a fantastic career, won major titles, and I think you definitely left your mark in BMX. So I appreciate it. I appreciate for doing this, Warwick, and maybe we'll do another part 2 at some point. Maybe talk a bit more about the Australian stuff. I know you got a lot of history even before you came to the US, and maybe we'll catch up and talk about that at some point. So thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we look forward to it. Thank you.